Welcome to the What's Our Verdict TV podcast, where we fashion ourselves television judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-host Mattson Heiner.
Better red than dead.
Ian Anderson. Habit there got me.
What's up, my? Oh wait, no, some shit.
Yeah. And Jay Vincent.
Hey, can you guys see me? I'm like black on the screen right now.
Yeah, I can't see you.
Hold on. Oh man, dude, it was trying to play that video, which I didn't even get to see. It wouldn't let me allow to see it.
That's not good.
Let me stop cam. What the fuck is going on with this thing?
That's what happens when you go live. The technical difficulties.
Honestly, I was just with you guys, and then when we did the intro, it cut me out, and now I'm black.
Yep.
Shit.
We can hear you still.
Can I jump on? Well, fuck it. Either way, I will try to figure something out. But
that's all right. Try leaving and jumping back in. We're good.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right. Give me a sec.
Mm-hmm. So while we wait for Jay, let me just go ahead and say we're gonna dive in. I'll just get the intro here. So you ever find yourself wondering if you take time to set your TiVo, record a show each week, or spend the money on a streaming service, or invest hours into binging that show that everybody's talking about? Well, we're here to answer that question for you. We do put TV shows on trial. We pass judgment and let you know our verdict. I think we got Jay back. We do. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good of you to join us, my friend. The fun of technical difficulties with live. Guys, to check out our other episodes, if you're joining us on Facebook or Instagram, you can head to our website using the link in our bio. If you're on YouTube, the link's in our description down below. You can also listen to us wherever you listen to your podcast, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Ghana, just to name a few. And remember, it's always free. Today we're reviewing Season 2, Episode 1 of The Mandalorian. Cool part is it picks up almost immediately after the conclusion of Season 1 as the Mandalorian is drawn to the Outer Rim in search of others of his kind. So first of all, let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. Spoilers to come. So if you haven't watched this episode, get out now, go watch it, because we're going to deep dive. We're going to talk about spoilers. So let's do this. There are some major points, obviously, to discuss here. Mattson, you had a question, so I'm just going to let you lead in with what was your question?
Yeah, it's something that I saw in kind of Season 1 that some people liked and didn't like, and it happened in Season 2, at least in my opinion. I was really hoping for them to kind of dive right into the main plot point of the story, because we know that he was quested to find and return Baby Yoda to his people, and we knew that he needed to go find another Mandalorian to help make this happen. But then, in my opinion, they wanted albeit a really amazing side quest. But that seems to be kind of the theme of Mandalorian, where we meet these people that are going to influence the story in probably big ways. But I wanted there to be more of at least the meat of the plot for me. I just wanted to ask you guys, did you like the direction went for the first episode? Were you hoping for more like me of kind of the meat of the plot? I, as you can tell, was hoping we'd get a little bit more into the thick of the main part of Mandalorian, not this super awesome side quest. That, albeit, probably is going to fit very well into the story. But I want to hear it from you guys.
I honestly was looking so forward to the Darksaber. Sorry, I got an echo in my ear, and I thought that's really where we would pick up, but honestly, I thought it was kind of like a nice little. It was almost like that Sanctuary episode from Season 1. It was like an immediate breather at the beginning, and that was just like kind of like that's what kind of threw me off, and I think that's kind of what threw you off too. Is that they kind of hit us with that sanctuary type feeling in the beginning, so that we're kind of lethargic, and then all of a sudden they ended on something. I'm not gonna say because it's spoilers.
Yeah,
What about you, Ian?
feel like they just don't have enough of the meat there yet. I don't know. I just watching the first season got that feeling a lot, where there's a bunch of side quests and it felt like very filler to get to the actual heavy hitter type story plot points. So I just don't know if they don't have that much, or if they're trying to make it more you can watch one and be like, okay, like you kind of get a full story in one episode by chunks. I don't know.
No, I get where your question came from. For me, it makes a lot of sense too because that's this story seems to go that way, right? Like kind of like you said in season 1, he's all about. He goes other than the very first bounty that he picks up, they all kind of go sideways on him. Like something always goes weird, and he ends up doing something other than what his initial, plan was. So it fit for me, but I definitely can see where you were looking for more of that storyline, especially the one where it's about trying to get this kid back to where he belongs, and if nothing else, back to the Jedi or his own people. So
Yeah,
I definitely can see that.
The last thing I wanted to say, and that's why I enjoyed the last episodes of season 1, I think so much because it stayed very on brand to driving what I perceived the main story, which I was most interested in. And my only worry is if they're going to continue to kind of do that again, to Ian's point, I'm hoping there's enough there to really drive the narrative that I'm looking for, because I'm very captivated by that narrative. But some of these sideshow stories, albeit very cool and visually stunning, I want to see more of the meat of our characters and really get into them.
It's fair.
Well, I could see.
I think. Sorry, go ahead, Ian.
I could see that this episode potentially was to introduce a new character, like that felt very focused towards pointing towards that character, which we'll talk about in the future. So I could see that as well.
And
yeah.
also, sorry, I was just gonna say I read something today that was like talking about how the two guys were wearing the masks, and I was like, imagine having to film that. And so that got me thinking, like maybe they go to these places like Tatooine and places that we know from Star Wars lore to show us these cool things that they couldn't during the movies, like the beasts and the sand people. And like it's kind of like a way of giving fan service, but it's getting in the way of the plot.
That's a good point, because that's what I felt like with this episode, is that it was a lot of deep cut fan service stuff, which we'll talk about. And it's actually a good lead in to kind of something you brought up, Jay, in previous conversation as we've been texting about this episode, is the cameos. There's a ton of cameos just in this episode alone. And there was always big cameos, but most of them drove the point. Some of them in this one, in my opinion, felt like they didn't necessarily. So the first big one, obviously, we have Gore Koresh, which is the Cyclops character at the beginning. He was played by John Leguizamo. And Jon Favreau actually directed this episode, and he works a lot with Favreau. So it's another one of those, we pulled Favreau out, and here he's directed, and now we got this. So I thought that was cool that John Leguizamo was in this. But then Amy Sedaris is back as Peli Motto, which just thrilled me because I love her. I love those droids. She cracks me up. I like that they show that he's warming up a little bit to droids.
Yes, the droids got to do work on the thing. I was so happy.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. That progression that he made from last season with IG-11 was in the forefront, so that was pretty cool. And then we move into a more heavy part of this story when we get out to Mos Volpa, I think it was, or whatever the weird name was, but out in the middle of nowhere. So the Weequay bartender was played by W. Earl Brown, who was in Deadwood, with Timothy Olyphant, who we find out, we see this, which was a cool shot, by the way, guys, when the freaking Boba Fett armor walks into the door. I was like, oh, shit, are we going to get him this early? And then it turns out, no.
He looked a little skinny and wimpy, though, once you realize. You're like, ah!
Absolutely. Well, and it caught me off guard because I saw it. I was like, oh, they're going to introduce him. And then I forgot that this character who Timothy Olyphant plays in Cobb Vanth, we find out he pulls the helmet off, and he's not Boba, obviously. But you find out at one point that I realized that this is a character from a trilogy of books called the Aftermath series that happened directly after Return of the Jedi. And he's in this, and he's in these little side chapters. He's not part of the main story, but they tell a different version of him coming upon this armor. But I just wanted to see what you guys thought about Cobb Vanth and this whole Boba Fett armor being right there.
It was pretty cool, man. I was just thinking when you were saying about the armor was something that I read was actually about how man, I can't place it now. But anyways, I was trying to figure out, because I wrote him down as basically a cosplayer with Mando armor. Like even in the shot where he actually uses it on the people in the town, it was like, well, he's not as efficient as Mando, but And I don't know. I kind of forgot where I was going with that thought. It kind of took me somewhere, but yeah, that was actually really cool. And I feel like Timothy Oliphant gets so many bar scenes. Like I was telling you guys, like I really, when they came in and they did it and he was like, "Can I get you a drink? Like sit down." It was like he was doing Leo's role from Once Upon a Time. And I was like, man, but then again, you reminded me he's in Deadwood. So he probably does that shit all the time.
Well, he was also in that FX show. What
Justice
was it?
or something like that.
Justified. Yeah. So I mean, this guy's in bars a lot.
Looking badass.
Yep, and the whole Wild Wild West theme for sure. Yeah, I really liked him, and I love Timothy Oliphant. Like I've always enjoyed him in most of the movies and TV shows that he's done. So I was really excited to see him in Cobb Vanth, that Cobb Vanth role.
By the way, John Leguizamo in the beginning was like such a treat because it was almost like the Horatio Sands in the first episode, but I knew who this person was, and I was like, oh my god, I love John Leguizamo, man. He was awesome, and yeah, you're right. He did Chef with John
great
Favreau.
movie.
He was awesome in that.
Great movie. That's what we're doing, boys. That's my choice for the movie next week. Since we're not doing the theater movies, is Chef. I'm gonna make you guys watch Chef. I love that movie.
Yeah, dude, that's the feel good movie of like all time.
Hell yeah!
Like I watch that to cheer up sometimes.
Yep, I love it. So yeah, John Leguizamo was a fun one. All of these were pretty fun, cameos. There is one big one we're going to talk about. We're going to wait until the end to talk about it because it's such an impact. But I want to talk about the Tusken Raiders, guys. So Tusken Raiders from the day one of Star Wars have always been kind of vilified, with the exception of, I mean, obviously in episode 2, Anakin slaughters a whole village of them. So you kind of feel bad for him, but they're still the enemy. I mean, they kidnapped his mother, they tortured her, whatever it was. And so they were still bad, at some point. So we didn't really feel too bad for them. We just saw them as part of Darth Vader's progression, right? In this, we get to see that they're not bad. And there's some very huge parallels to the Old West, the Wild West, right? Between the indigenous Americans and the Western settlers, things like that you see those comparisons there. But I loved the whole negotiation, how they had to work together. What did you guys think about that whole plot point?
Well, I think in today's day and age, it sends a great message about all the turmoil going on in not just American culture, but around the world. That, I mean, there's going to be times when you're going to have to partner up with your perceived enemy to accomplish a greater goal, a greater good. And I think that's something that resonates quite often. You have to put aside your differences and come together to achieve something greater, something bigger. And that's one of the messages I took away from that. But I think it's also realistic to see that what's the character? It's not Boba Fett, but what's his name in the actual?
Marshal.
Yeah, Marshal. When I just loved it. They were sitting around the fire, and obviously Mando can speak the language and all, and it was pretty funny because it seemed like a tough language to speak. It'd be hard on the voice. But you can just see the Marshal just sitting there, probably just stewing. He's like, I can't understand this. These people have murdered my people, stolen things like that. He blew up on that scene. But then Mando pulled back. He's like, look, if we don't have them, then this is just going to keep going, and your town's going to get picked off. And so, really resonated with me. But I thought they did a great job showing tension on both sides of the table, but showing why moments like that can work.
Absolutely. It's a great point.
I didn't even know that there was all that backstory with these people. Like I knew, so I actually saw like Star Wars was on TBS last night, basically. And I turned it on and I watched and I saw that there was like one, he sees the sand people when he's with R2 and he's like, R2's trying to find Obi-Wan and he's like, oh, it's just sand people. And I was like, even then I was like, damn, sand people. Like I'm surprised they still air that, but okay. And then they did, but then there's a whole backstory that I didn't even know about. And then when Mattson, what you were just talking about made me kind of think, is this what the Mudhorde clan is going to do from now on? Come bring enemies together around the world. You know what I mean? So damn, they stole Anakin's parents. I totally forgot about that. But yeah, it was actually pretty cool. And I agree. And now I am wondering about that question. Is that what, and you kind of worded it perfectly two enemies coming together for a greater good. And I'm like, wow, that sounds like what the show's ultimately going to be about.
They do it a lot, right? They did
Yeah,
it throughout first season when you think
yeah.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very interesting to that comparison, and that was a great point, Matson. I like that. I didn't think about that. The other thing that it did was, in going back to episode 4, when we talk about A New Hope, we have the Crate Dragon, which for the first introduction to a
Dope.
Crate Dragon, oh, I was so excited when we actually got to see one, besides in a really old video game. But the
Wait,
Crate,
is that what killed Boba Fett?
no. What killed
in the
Boba
movie?
Fett was, no, that's a great question. What killed Boba Fett was they talk about a Sarlacc pit. And so he ends up in a Sarlacc pit where they talk about, the Mandalorian says you can, unless you eat your way out of one, right? Or something like that, or you kill the Sarlacc. So that's what got Boba Fett in Return of the Jedi. He fell into a Sarlacc pit. The Crate Dragon is what Obi-Wan uses to scare away the Tusken Raiders from Luke after they attack him. He uses the big noise as he comes walking up with his,
that's what that
his
noise
robe
is?
and he's doing this shit, and they run away from him because there's that big loud noise. It's a Crate Dragon howl. And so and there was line, they cut the line, and he just says the sand people scare easily, but they'll come back with bigger numbers. Well, there used to be, in the original script, it was the sand people scare easily, and that was the Crate Dragon howl, which is one of their enemies or something. It was something like that. They explained the Crate Dragon. But yeah, that's what he did, was a Crate Dragon howl. And you can hear it throughout this episode as the Crate Dragon is howling and screaming. There's little undertones of that same noise. So they grabbed that audio file from episode 4 and put it in that roar a couple of times.
That would scare me. If I was standing, like, all right, yeah, I'm going to go the other way. That thing is like the size of 3 football fields or something.
And it was such
so
a
many people, the ones like putting the bantha out there, like putting the bait, and then they have the 3 other guys go and scare. I was like, man, you got to be pretty ballsy to be the person that's gonna go wake that thing up.
Well, by the way, they played us perfectly for that scene where they feed them, because the thing came in, ate the beast. Because I liked seeing the beast. I was like, oh, it's from the movie. And then when they were walking in there, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Is the guy not going to get eaten? And then it just skips the beast.
Those scenes make me laugh because I'm like, this is Star Wars, such way more technologically advanced in a lot of ways. But then you're like, don't they just have like a Bluetooth speaker that they could have put out there and then like yelled into the mic and it would achieve the same thing? But apparently you got to walk up there.
So funny. Yeah, I thought that was the best when it didn't even go after the bantha and it just ate him.
So bad for that dude. On that dragon, how does I gotta be? It was such a cool dragon and everything, but when I think of sand and I walk on sand, I'm around sand, I'm just like, and that thing was going through the mountain, then it popped up on the other side behind their whole crew. I mean, we don't have an explanation of how it gets through the sand that quickly, but man, I'm like, how do you even do that? It's like swimming through water for it, basically.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It was really cool visuals. I love that one where it popped out. You thought they'd exploded it, and it pops out of the top of that mountain.
And then it just vomits on people with acid vomit. That was surprising to me. I was not ready for that.
Yeah, that one caught me off guard too. Well, and you haven't seen them. This is the first time in any kind of cinematic version that you've seen these animals. Like they're throughout the universe. Like there's a card game where there's a Crate Dragon and the Crate Dragon Howl. They're kind of like a Magic the Gathering type card game that guys are in. And then they were in the Knights of the Old Republic video game. So you could go kill him and take. So at the end, it is another little Easter egg, which was pretty cool. When they kill the Crate Dragon and he holds up that big ball at the end when they find it in the body.
Yeah, I wrote a note. I was like, we got our ball back. Like like a neighbor or some shit. Like the thing ate it 10 years ago and you finally got your ball back. What is it?
That's a Crate Dragon pearl. And it's something that they produce. It's kind of like a clammed pearl or, whatever it is that, so, but they create these pearls and they're worth ungodly amounts of money. And for the Tusken Raiders, they're like a show of your clan's strength. So if you have one, it means you're the ultimate because you've killed a Crate Dragon, right? Which obviously we see as a formidable enemy to take down. Well, in the Knights of the Old Republic, you could go and kill a Crate Dragon and sell those pearls. You could harvest the pearl, and they were worth 100,000 credits, which was
Whoa.
a ridiculous amount of money for the game. So, and for the anything, but yeah, so they're worth a lot of money, and that's why they wanted when they tell the settlers, we'll leave you alone, you just leave the carcass and the ichor. We want that. They're looking for that pearl, and then of course food, which I love. You see the Mandalorian strapping on a big ass piece of meat.
Yoda, the child is eating it, right? The little
he's
Yoda's
picking
eating
at it.
Big old piece of beef jerky.
Oh yeah. No, it was great. So I was thrilled when you're standing in that town and the crate that starts shaking and the crate dragon kind of goes through, and he says it's a crate dragon. I almost lost my shit. I was like, I've been waiting 38 years for them to go deeper into a crate dragon and actually show one. So I was tickled.
My note on that one was hold up, stop, crate or monster crossing, because everybody just stopped on the sidewalk and it allowed it to go by.
Yeah. Well, they're not wrong. At some point that thing's going to cause some serious issues. So really cool. All right, guys. So Ian, it's your turn, my friend. You had some questions about our final cameo.
Yeah, I selfishly wanted to use my time to tap JJ's knowledge about Star Wars, and I wanted to know more about the Fets, like how they got their Mandalorian armor. Are they not? I did a little bit of research last night because I just kind of got into that black hole, but I wanted to hear it from somebody I trusted instead of random people on the internet just saying crap.
It is it's quite the rabbit hole you can go down when it comes to the Boba Fett and Jango Fett. So I'll kind of go in. First of all, this cameo is Boba Fett. At the very end of the episode, you see Tamira Morrison, who played Jango Fett and the clones in episode 2, Attack of the Clones. And so you see Jango Fett was who the clone army in the Star Wars universe was based on and built on. And Boba, you're introduced to Boba as a child in that episode, and he's very young, and he is a pure clone of Jango and raised as his son. So he's unaltered. The clones were all altered to make them mature faster. He was not. So he grew up as a child. And he's throughout the lore. Obviously, we were introduced to him early on in the holiday special, and then he was in Empire Strikes Back as well as Return of the Jedi. We thought he died in Return of the Jedi. We see in this he did not. So you can see he's kind of got some burn scars, it looks like, from, I'm assuming, the acid within the Sarlacc pit belly, because that's what
I'm kind of thinking like Deadpool's face.
Yeah, kind of exactly. So you're digesting in his armor, and in the expanded universe, before they reset the canon, he survived. He becomes the Mandalore, which is the leader of the Mandalorian people, and which they've changed that whole thing a little bit with the new canon. But he becomes the Mandalore. He has a child. He has grandchildren who become the Mandalore. He fights against a race of aliens called the Yuuzhan Vong, which is a nasty race of aliens. Anyway, that's the whole expanded universe. With this new canon, we know now that he's survived. In those Aftermath books, you find out that they found his armor with some of this acid damage on it. Cobb Vanth takes it. That story's a little different from the book to there. So you see there's some maybe unreliable narrators in these shows, which is cool. But I can't say 100% guarantee that Boba is a true Mandalorian, because it's not ever said in any lore, any canon that's true canon now. So it was intimated in the expanded universe canon. The new canon with Disney, no one's ever said yes or no they were true Mandalorians. I like to assume that they are, because it makes sense to me that Jango Fett would have been with the high level armor that he had. I just have a hard time feeling, especially now that we know with this Mandalorian, this Beskar armor, it was obviously Beskar that Boba had, and then you see that Jango's was just a dyed colored Beskar because it deflected those blaster bolts pretty well. So my assumption is that they are. I'm hoping that this series will answer it. But Boba was obviously, being a clone of Jango, to me, because he's a clone, he still has Mandalorian blood. So as long as they prove that he is, but there's also reports out there that they just wear Mandalorian armor. They were able to acquire it in certain ways. And obviously because Jango was a badass, it took a badass to take him down in the movies. So it's not hard to believe that he was very good and could have taken some of this armor, and Django got that armor and then dyed it and did whatever he needed to do with it, or Boba. But I like to think they're Mandalorian. I think it will be a waste of this great character if they don't make him an actual Mandalorian, especially with how much tie-in they're working on with this show, bringing in stuff from Rebels and the Clone Wars, where the Mandalorians played such a big part throughout both of those animated series. I just feel like it would be a waste if he's not, but there is a chance that they're not, that they just had Mandalorian armor. But that was him at the end.
Say that because most of what I found was people saying they're not Mandalorians, so I'm kind of satisfied to hear you say that you hope they are.
But I mean, it's up to Disney at this point.
Fake
They could
news.
just say they're Mandalorians if they're smart. I don't know, but
Maybe that's what this show is for. The show is to like answer questions people have had about canon. They're like, no, wait, Han, he actually shot that dude. Yeah, and this guy, he's actually a Mandalorian.
And it could be, and they've done a lot of that. Which the other thing that I really love is they're not afraid. They've shown that they're not afraid to dive into the expanded universe and actually bring some of that they decanonized years ago and bring it back into canon. I think that's really exciting. Because of all these stories that are going into now, obviously something like one of the things is just an offshoot here is Boba in his older age trained one of the children of Luke Skywalker to fight her brother, who they were twins, Jason and Jaina Solo. So it was Solo's kids, Solo, and they become Jedi, and kind of a parallel to the most recent trilogy, one of them becomes a Sith Lord, and Boba trains Jaina to fight Darth Vader, who is her brother. So throughout this, they're bringing in some of these really cool stories. It's really fun. So I'm excited to continue to see how they do that and answer some of these canon questions. Ian, to your point, there are a lot of people who are very much against them being Mandalorian, and I don't know why that is. I think it's just a preference, but I want them to be, because I think the Mandalorians have always held such a high place in lore, even before they decanonized a lot, that these guys were so cool. There's mythic fighters, this militant society that everything that mattered was being strong and powerful warriors. And so here you have two, at least Boba, throughout the history of Star Wars has been like this feared entity of a warrior and a bounty hunter. So why would we take the ability away from him to continue with that and just be the coolest thing? So we have some comments here. Aaron Diaz Matson, he says you're the man. So he just started season 1, so he doesn't really get Star Wars at all, but going to try and learn. I think that's cool, Aaron. I'm excited for you. Learn Star Wars. As you can tell, I am deep cut nerd for Star Wars. And then he had a question. Can you guys explain what a Mandalorian is? Absolutely. So, man, I'll dive in. You guys can fill in. The Mandalorians are a race of people from the planet Mandalore, and they are a militant society. Everything that mattered to them was military strength. A lot of them went off to become, if they left the planet, they would be bounty hunters. They would be soldiers for hire, different things like that. But they were always very highly equipped. They had, in the old canon, it was Mandalorian iron. We've learned now that it's Beskar steel, which is their weapons and everything are made of. So yeah, those are Mandalorians, and there's not many of them left. There was the Mandalorian Purge, the Purge of Mandalore, during shortly following the Clone Wars,
which I found out during our episode in season 1. Like, I didn't even know that was something. So I'm a newbie, like he is. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of just fell into this. But yeah, what were you going on? What were you saying about with
just that there aren't many left. So
okay.
And most of them now that we're finding out through this series are adopted into Mandalore. They're not actually born on Mandalore. They're not Mandalorian blood. They're adopted in as foundlings, which is really cool.
Aaron, good to see that you're listening to this, my friend. To me, I liken it to Spartans from back in like Greek lore. The Spartans were known for their just developing their children and adults into being great warriors. And to me, the Mandalorians are the Spartans of Star Wars in a sense. But it looks like you got another question here. You said, is it important to watch the Star Wars movies first to understand the Mandalorian series? Now, that I would say is an extremely loaded question. Personally for me, Aaron, the way these are going, I think you can watch and enjoy what is happening episode by episode, but there's a lot of nuanced things that you may not understand from the greater universe. But to me, there's not a ton of kind of traditional Star Wars tie-in from Anakin and Obi-Wan and Luke that they really throw into this. So Mandalorian as a series, I think, can still be enjoyed. But if you're looking to understand a lot of the Easter eggs we're going to throw out or the connections that you're not going to understand that we may have already talked about, it would behoove you, big word, to watch some of the Star Wars movies. But what does everyone else say?
I mean, I've only seen, I saw Phantom Menace. That was maybe my first Star Wars movie, really, I think. And then I didn't see the old ones until the new trilogy came out. But so I'm like right there with you, and I think you can enjoy it absolutely. It's such a well done show. I actually had to come up with like a new rating on how to rate these episodes that we're going to do, because I gave the last season like 5 out of 5 because it really was that good. And it's my favorite part about Star Wars. Like, you could take the movies away, just give me the Mandalorian. That's all I really care about. And especially with Baby Yoda. But there are like so many deep cuts that I don't get, that only JJ can tell me about. And then also, like, you do see things that pop up. Like, I thought that the pod racer that the Marshal
I love that.
Anakin's, right?
It looked like it.
Very similar style anyway. They never say it was or wasn't, but you like to assume that it was because it looked just like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the benefit of like watching the movies, is that you do get those deep cuts. And like, now I told JJ I was going to start watching the series too, because a lot of this comes from the series. And like you mentioned, I don't know if I'll ever watch. I'll try to find the holiday special just because you mentioned it. But if you didn't mention it, I don't think I'd ever watch it.
You can skip it. It's bad.
All right.
So, Aaron, for me, and this coming from a giant nerd, and this is one of my favorite parts of The Mandalorian, is no, you don't have to enjoy this show. And I encourage it because I feel like Star Wars is just such an immersive, fun universe to live in. But you don't have to watch them in order to get what's going on. You're just going to, like they've said, and these guys hit it perfectly, you're just going to miss little things that are in there for fan service. But other than that, it's a very good all-in-one show that holds up on its own. So he's got, Aaron, what's the correct order of the movies? I know some chapters came out in different orders. So I'm a purist. So for me, I would start with episode 4, which is A New Hope. It's the original movie that came out in 1977. I would start there and go episode 4, 5, and 6, and then jump to episode 1, 2, and 3, and then finish with 7, 8, and 9. That's the order in which they were released. To me, that's the proper order to watch them, and there's reasons for that. The original trilogy introduces you, of course, to Darth Vader, who everybody should be at least have heard of at some point, and because he's out there. But that whole story opens up with him, and then everything else kind of is based around him in a lot of ways, or at least that Skywalker bloodline. So I would start there. That's just me. What do you guys think on that one?
I'm not going to disagree with that. I think it'd be interesting to have not seen 4, 5, and 6 and start at 1, 2, and 3. I'm never going to be that person, but that would be because you wouldn't know who Darth Vader was at all, and it would start to get closer. You'd see Anakin's confusion and all that. But Aaron, I think I would go with your resident big-time Star Wars nerd, a.k.a. JJ, and start with what the purists would call, because I think purists would say 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and then 7, 8, 9.
Cool.
Honestly, I would go by the numbers because I am that guy. I was just thinking, like, imagine if somebody, when you were saying it's kind of weird, like, I was like, oh shit, that was actually me. I watched the prequel first, and I'd never watched Star Wars. I knew about it though because it was so substantive in our culture that I never even gave it a shot. And then I had to watch it so that I knew this new trilogy coming up. And it's pretty cool because the things that I now know that you guys can think about when you see the movie, and things that I even had to pick up on because just from like culture reference, you see those in the prequel. But imagine if you watch it from the prequel all the way through, then I imagine the Star Wars, the main trilogy from, I can't name them, New Hope, those ones. are probably better, a lot better when you have all that backstory, kind of like now with the Mandalorian.
You know, it's interesting you say that, Jay, and I have to kind of rethink my process here because Casey, who is not, she hates Star Wars, but she's watched some of them with me, and she watched the prequel trilogy 1, 2, and 3, and she doesn't mind them because visually they're stunning, right? The problem with 4, 5, and 6 is they were made in the 70s and early 80s, so the visual effects are they're all practical effects. CGI wasn't a thing back then, so they're all practical style effects. Yeah, puppetry. Miniatures, everything was done practically. And so the visuals are a little wonky. They've added some of that in the versions that you'll watch on Disney Plus. They've added some of the CGI. So you'll see some of that. It's not great CGI. So the visuals are a little struggling. So if you're going to be one that you watch 4, 5, and 6 and you're like, oh, the visuals suck, because it's all about the story to me. The visuals don't bother me at all because the story is so strong and powerful. But from a point of view where, if you're used to crisp, sharp-looking movies, you may want to start with 1, 2, and 3 because it'll get you interested in the storyline, which then continues on in 4, 5, and 6 in a very interesting way. And then, of course, 7, 8, 9 are visually just unreal because they're so modern. But so it really, I don't think there's a wrong way to ingest the Star Wars movies. I really don't. The other thing that I would encourage, and it's a lot to do, is I've told these guys, if you haven't, you really should dive into the animated series. They've done more because of who's running this show. Dave Filoni was the producer and owned both of the animated series, Rebels and Clone Wars. And then Jon Favreau he's all about the deep cut stuff for Star Wars. So they've done more and will continue this season for more with those two series than even in the movies. Most of the movie stuff is just really cool, fan service. The stuff they're really diving deep on is some of this animated series because the Mandalorian played such a heavy part in both series. So interesting stuff.
The Marshal, isn't he a book only character?
Cobb Vanth is a book only character. He was in a series of books called Aftermath, written by Chuck.
Talking about spoilers, but I've only one episode in. I'm trying to do it weekly.
Yeah.
But as soon as I saw the commercials that it was launching, and then as soon as it launched, the E channel, it's got like the scroll at the bottom, and it's like, oh, book only character introduced, and just laying out the spoilers for me, and I was like, oh fuck, now I got to watch this thing.
Yeah, no, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. All right. Aaron, first of all, thanks for the questions, man. We appreciate you watching and diving in. Let us know. Reach out. If you have questions, you can always email me. Feel free to email me. I'll talk Star Wars all day long. So hosts at whatsourverdict.com. If you have questions, reach out to us here on Facebook, Instagram. Mattson's our Instagram guru, but if he sees a question about Star Wars, I'm sure he'll let me know so I can dive in and answer those. So I will talk Star Wars till I'm blue in the face. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Mattson, speaking of all that stuff, tell everybody where they can find us.
Yeah, if you want to come listen to this later today or throughout the week, obviously we're on our YouTube channel. You can find us on Facebook. This will also be uploaded to our podcast on Spotify and Apple and Ghana and wherever else you can find us at What's Our Verdict TV. Come chime in, and obviously check us out on Instagram and Facebook as well, and send us some DMs, some comments, whatever. We want to banter back and forth with you. And if it's going to be Star Wars, it's probably going to be JJ.
Works for me. And finally, I just want to pop it up just to give Aaron props, man. You'll have plenty of questions. Hit me up, sir. I'm excited for it.
Wanted to give Aaron a shout out. He's one of the co-hosts on Goody Two Shoes. If you guys like watching anything about shoes, awesome shoes, check out their channel. Aaron's a good friend of mine. Vegas, rep it all the way. Aaron, thanks for chiming on today, man.
Yeah, sweet. I'll have to check that out. Goody Two Shoes. I'm going to have to look into that. Jay, tell everybody where they can find you because you got some stuff going on yourself. So
yeah,
let everybody know.
Honestly, Twitter, everything is at Hardy Jays, JAYZ. Actually, I'm going to this. There's this thing that I met at the protest was called Poor People's Campaign, and they really are about like grassroots. I mean, we just basically been calling voters to get them registered, really. And now we're going to be holding a protest in Annapolis in front of like the election where they count them on November 4th. So a lot of social justice type of stuff.
Cool. Keep us informed, man. Keep up the great work. We love what you do, and we appreciate you being on. We look forward to keep having you on all throughout this series. So 8 episodes. We're going to be reviewing all of them, each one individually on live like this. So thanks again, Aaron, for the questions. We love that you listen to us. He says he gets a lot of ideas from our reviews for things for him to check out. So we love that. We appreciate that. Keep chiming in, man. We'll have to have you on an episode, dude. We love having guest people, for sure. So let's work with you. We'll get you on an episode, have you watch a movie or a TV show with us, and just like Jay, that's how we got Jay, man. We invited him on, and now he's a consistent TV podcaster with us. So we love it. Thanks, guys, for joining us. We're gonna call it on the Mandalorian season 2, episode 1. We'll see you next week for episode 2. Can't wait for that. And thanks again for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one, guys.
Bye.
Bye. I stole Javier's. Didn't work.
It's all right. It works. All right. See. Bye.